Ses por favor.
Merhaba, duyabiliyorsunuz tekrar.
Ben de Selim de orada olacak.
Okay. I would like to welcome for everybody. This is our second session as Integrated Reporting Association Turkey. Very welcome from different countries all over the world, and then welcome to our distinguished speakers. We have 4 speakers today. First one is we would like to hear Bahar Hanım. Bahar Güçlü, Deputy Director General of International Agreement and EU General Directorate, Turkey Ministry of Trade. And Gülhan Bey, he's from Borsa Istanbul. He's the Executive Vice President of Borsa Istanbul. Berk Mesitoğlu, he's from Banking Regulatory Authority, Senior Banking Specialist. And also in online, we have İbrahim Öztop. İbrahim Öztop, Chairman of Turkish Capital Market Association Turkey. So welcome for all of us again. And today our topic is green transformation in emerging economies, financing low carbon economy and ETS, carbon trading system. We would like to discuss with all delegates what's going on in terms of these topics today. So we don't need to maybe talk at the opening remarks about how important climate change and why we have to take an action. Today we have to talk about how to solve this problem. Taking action meaning not solving problem. And we have to know how to take action. So first of all, we need a gap analysis, actually, I should say. But what is the biggest gap to reach our target in terms of climate change, to net zero target? I think it's one of the biggest gap is financial gap. So especially for developing countries, we have to decide how to move forward to solve this problem. So today, one of our topics related with this one. So we will talk about the maybe first EU Green Deal transaction, how impact on Turkey and emerging countries, as emerging countries, and carbon border adjustment mechanism and emission trading system, and also we will talk about how financial institutions and markets support low carbon economy, how to finance low carbon economy in emerging countries. We are going to talk about all these issues. I would like to start first, Bahar Hanım, Bahar Güçlü. I will not do any opening remarks because of I'm saving my time, and I would like to directly ask you, what do you possible impact on European Green Deal in Turkey and Turkish market, and especially carbon border agreement, adjustment mechanism is the most important regulation to impact on Turkish companies, especially small and medium-sized companies. And I would like to hear how can we transform, what is the grand transformation way to SMEs especially. And last one is how ready Turkey for this transaction?
Thank you very much.
As you have mentioned, here we are there in COP27 to talk about implementation. And in Turkey also we have been discussing all over these issues for quite time, and I think we have accelerated our efforts in the terms of implementation. Here, actually, I should tell that especially you have mentioned about CBAM and its impact, the different situation of Turkey as regards this particular legislation, because Turkey is actually attached to the European Union single market, and it's part of European value chains. It has a customs union with the European Union. And in that regard, we see that the European Green Deal, CBAM, and not only CBAM, all the accompanying legislative work, which is also sometimes called regulatory tsunami, actually will have a direct impact on Turkish industries and Turkish exporters. Now, as regards just specifically on CBAM, actually our export is $10.6 billion for those products. But we should also recognize that within the scope of the CBAM other legislation, the regulatory tsunami, actually all sectors would actually be affected from such a transformation. And in that regard, of course, we have been working following the announcement of the European Green Deal by establishing a working group at the deputy minister level. Within that group, we have 13 ministries and industries, at the end of which we have prepared a Green Deal action plan. And within that action plan, we are covering 81 actions that aim to support the development of a sustainable economy in Turkey, but also ensure alignment with the European Green Deal policies. Here, because your question is also specifically mentioning on, what we are doing, especially in terms of policies such as CBAM, we have identified specific actions actually, and first of all, I think it is important to see that in the face of this transition, our industries will also need to decarbonize and to go through low carbon production, but also ensure circularity in their production. And we find that supporting and incentivizing the reduction of emissions, especially in energy intensive sectors, would be key. So what we are doing in that respect, we are identifying sectoral roadmaps for the transformation of our industry, and within the scope of those roadmaps, actually impact assessments, gap analysis, new technology and R&D assessments, necessary financing needs, and the incentives framework are being closely analyzed in order to establish that roadmaps and then to provide the necessary incentives for the transformation of these sectors. But of course, this is not enough. We believe that especially now devising a national carbon pricing mechanism for Turkey would be very critical, which is also an important issue of today's discussions, I believe, and also to provide a stronger regulatory framework to enhance the innovation environment as well. This is why we have also started a technology roadmap preparation in order to support and increase the support for R&D studies that would actually support this transformation. But of course, within that process, I believe that other than the internal work that we are conducting, it would be very important that such legislation doesn't become a barrier before trade. Now we are talking about implementation in COP27, but what we have seen since the last 2 years, I think, is fragmentation of regulatory approaches. Now every country is working nationally for devising their own policies to tackle the difficulties. So what would be the result of actually this kind of legislation? Actually 2 years ago, I think it was on the World Economic Forum, when we were just first starting the discussion on CBAM, they asked me what could be, you know, the impact of such legislation. And I said, I think if we are not cautious, it may cause a fragmented markets between countries. And I'm very sorry to tell this, but these markets also indicate to the very core challenges of that issue, where the line is again drawn between developed and developing countries, which is something that we have to avoid actually if we are going to be successful in that transition process. So this is also an important part of actually the work that we are conducting, and we would actually continue this, because in one hand we see also this process as an opportunity to drive a sustainable economic growth model for Turkey.
Very, very helpful information. So I think we have to little bit talk about how can we keep strong relationship between the financial industry and financial sector and in the industry to solve this problem. So talk about a little bit financial gap, how capital market is ready to support this transformation. So we are another speaker behind of us, İbrahim Bey, hoş geldiniz. I would like to pose the question to you as a self-regulatory authority and professional organization for the securities market participants in Turkey. Which actions are you taking to align with sustainability development and support the real industry? What kind of experience you are able to share with us to capital market institutions in the line with the development on sustainability area?
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be with you. Unfortunately, I am unable to come due to my illness. First of all, as a Turkish Capital Markets Association, of course, our main aims are contribute to the development of capital markets and facilitate the solidarity among our members. In order to reach those goals, we conduct a wide range of activities, from establishing professionals, rules and regulations, work with the regulatory bodies, propose changes, and conduct research and offer educational programs. Of course, the sustainability issue is very critical, and we have a long way to do and a lot of tasks to do. But what we are trying to do, at least give a kind of, let's say, raise awareness and inform our members on sustainable capital markets. For that reason, we have done special issue of periodical journal dedicated to the theme of sustainability. We have done this more than 3 years ago. And we have already educated some professionals, and we will give a kind of certificate for them. Plus, we will have already in our summits, we have more than 5 years. We will give sustainability in our summits. We will do the summits every year, and so in order to make the awareness, we will keep sustainability on the first front of our summit. And of course, we will deal with all the counterparties among our members. We have 231 members, banks, brokerage houses, asset managers, and the trustees. For that reason, we are trying to really somehow give that kind of, let's say, awareness and the know-how to this issue. Since the future is, especially in order to raise capital, the crucial thing is especially for cheaper funding. We think that the sustainability and ESG is has the highest priority and the top on our agenda. For that reason, we are doing our best in order to somehow educate and make awareness of the society. Of course, since all the panelists from our capital markets boards, from Banking Supervision and Regulation Agency and Borsa Istanbul, we are aligned with all them in order to how we can really develop especially the capital markets and this kind of product, because this kind of product has been really getting very attention from all markets, from international markets. That's what we need. In order to make that kind of, let's say, flow of money from capital markets and from banking industry to the real sector, so we have to have that kind of, let's say, disciplinary approach in order to have that kind of financing from these this money. I mean, this specialized money. That's for our big duty, but we have a long way to do, a lot of tasks to do. That's all that I'd like to say at the moment. Afterwards, I will come over the other questions that you need.
I I would like to share the one development. Maybe we can continue Gülsan Bey after you. Market Regulatory Authority, European Security Markets Authority (ESMA) adds ESG disclosure to key priorities in order to combat greenwashing. Just announced very newly. ESMA stated that they will support transparency and understandability of ESG disclosure across important segments of the sustainable finance value chain, such as issuers, investment managers, and investment firms, which is really important to follow these rules in Turkey because I think we are a member of European Security Market Association. And this is the one part we have to align our listed companies with this disclosure requirement first. On the other hand, we are talking about the carbon disclosure and low carbon emission, and we are talking about also carbon trading system. As we know that Borsa Istanbul working on very strongly this project. So what is your current state of carbon pricing mechanism? Do they have enough coverage in globally and for global emission? What is the latest trend in global carbon prices? And do we really ready to start some initiative for carbon trading system? Maybe direct question to you.
I can say, of course, but before I would like to just welcome all our spectators and our guests here. Thank you for joining us. When we just start with the carbon emission trading in the world, I can say that nowadays it's one of the most trendy topics in the exchanges life, and now there are 34 emission trading systems that are used globally, and also we have 37 carbon taxes according to the World Bank's numbers. So among these, EU ETS with its $35 billion revenue in 2021 is the largest carbon market in terms of the carbon revenue generated. So the revenue generated is really high, and also when we consider China ETS system, which has been operational last year, it just covers like 4.5 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide, which is a really high number for the world. And also, this is only the 30% of the China's greenhouse gas emissions. So when we think about the total system, as you said, the coverage is still needs some way to go, but the developments are really good when we compare about the work that has been already done by the exchanges. So when we talk about the next year's developments, we expect China ETS system to become without any now they're operating without any cost or any it's all a free carbon market. So this enormous size would just have some revenues that are going to be generated by the China. So the market is going to be larger and larger in the next years. So when we think about the whole system, unfortunately, we are still with 23% of the total global emission, which is only a quarter of the total volume. So we have to work harder and harder, and so cover at least the half of the carbon emissions in the next few years. Because as you can imagine, it's not only the developments that we can just do it with the carbon markets, trading markets. We have to have lots of other things, like Bahar Hanım has said, with the CMEs and with all the other components of the economy should be on that topic. So, for example, we just heard that International Maritime Organization is considering to place a price on the commissions, and also some carbon pricing gains transactions or the cross-border approaches, like the EU moved closer to adopting its carbon border adjustment mechanism, CBAM, and also some other jurisdictions, including Canada, UK, and United States, are continuing to investigate options for border carbon adjustments. So, a last look for the ETS markets. We can just say that Germany is now covering EU ETS, and some others are covered by the national ETS. What I want to emphasize here is that the markets themselves should either be international, or they should be some locals also, and it shouldn't be just left to the international markets. It should be the nation's first aims to lessen the carbon emissions with their national markets also, which nowadays we do.
National or global market?
Well, when you think about, for example, the volunteer markets, one of the last news about the markets and the volunteer market emissions volunteer emission market for the global markets is that the London Stock Exchange has just opened a new market for the for this volunteer global emission market. So this is I think a national aim or national attack on the carbon emissions, lessening the carbon emissions. So we are also thinking about, or just talking about, the volunteer markets in Turkey. But we are now, the first aim is to build up the carbon market, which we have already have the prototype of it, and we just run it in Konya in the summit that we all climate summit, and also we are talking with the with some ministries to finish up the legislation about these markets, which I will just give later on. I might just give more details about it.
Yes, thank you. Good to hear some development at Borsa Istanbul in terms of ETS market. So let's move to banking industry. As the banking industry is the locomotive for low carbon economy and green transformation. You are doing a lot of good things, and you are a very important player for this green transformation issue. And I would like to hear your view. What is the possible effect of the European Green Deal and green transformation in Turkey and Turkish financial industry? And then what kind of chains and obligations are waiting companies in Turkey in access to sustainable finance? So what is the role of banking industry? What is the role of banking regulatory authority in terms of green transformation?
Hello everyone. Thank you very much, Güler Hanım. Before I begin my remarks, I like to express my gladness for being invited to this event. I believe this event will be very productive and beneficial for all of us. As you know well, European Union Green Deal creates some risks and opportunities for Turkey. Probably the most important risk source for Turkey is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM. Actually, the sectors under the CBAM, the sectors that will be subject to tax, carbon tax, face risks of competitive disadvantage and market loss. And this situation, of course, has a potential to affect financial strength and loan repayment capacity of firms. Earlier this year, Banking Regulation and Supervision Agency, BRSA, asked banks to conduct impact analyses regarding the possible effects of the first stage of CBAM. In this context, banks estimated the potential for deterioration in their customers' loan repayment capacities. And the findings showed that the initial impact of CBAM in the first stage is a limited increase in NPL ratios for banking sector, which is about 0.1 percentage point. However, as you know, as we all know, the scope of CBAM will be expanded rapidly, and some other similar carbon tax initiatives will be introduced outside the EU and even in Turkey. And that's why actually all parties, including real sector and financial sector, should prepare themselves without delay. On the other hand, the Green Deal may also actually bring some opportunities for Turkey. For instance, expanding sustainable and labor-intensive economic activities and the funds to be provided by the EU for harmonization process can actually offer some opportunities for Turkey. Moreover, Turkey, as a neighboring country to the EU, has a significant comparative advantage against the other huge but far trading partners such as China and India in terms of carbon emissions arising from transportation. Regarding the changes and obligations that await firms in Turkey, I think transparency is the most important issue. The ESG performance, as we all know, has become one of the main determinants of long-term return and loan repayment performance. Therefore, financial institutions are increasingly more and more considering the ESG performance in the resource allocation process. In this respect, firms should be able to produce and share reliable, consistent, and comprehensive data on their ESG performance. Raising awareness is another critical issue, actually. A report published by the Istanbul Chamber of Commerce last September points out that despite some progress, firms' awareness of green transformation needs to be increased, especially for SMEs. For example, the share of firms following the developments regarding Green Deal, EU Green Deal, is only around 30% among exporting firms. Similarly, 32% of firms think that not engaging in environmentally friendly activities will not be a problem for them. policymakers and NGOs can play a major role in raising awareness. Large-scale firms actually are also in a critical position in this regard. It will be very beneficial for large-scale firms to share their experiences with the SMEs they do business with. Even they may provide some financing opportunities and technology transfer to their SME scale suppliers. Actually, this support to be provided to SMEs will actually have some positive reflections on large firms at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Berk Bey. I think our industries, the companies have three main problems I would like to tell you later, but first I would like to summarize what I understand. First, we have to increase the awareness for the company, what they have to know what they need to do, how urgent this issue. So we need awareness. And then second one is, even they know something is coming and important, they need a support. The first, technical support. Even they don't know how to measure carbon emission. And a real question is how to decrease carbon emission. So it is another technical and technological issue. And the last one is the financial. So this is your solution. They need the financial support to solve this problem. If they need a technological investment, if they need infrastructure investment, they have to find the fund. If they started to seek fund, if they go to bank, they're asking ESG indicators. This kind of, how they reach their aim, how they solve this problem. So we have to, maybe government and other institutions have to start support somewhere for especially SME, small and medium-sized enterprises to do something. So in the first round, thank you for your very valuable information. I think we just understood that the institutions, what they are doing, what is your opinion. Next step, we can maybe focus on roadmap of the Turkey. What really, we know what we need to do, what we have to know, we have to share with the people. How can we do that? We need a roadmap. So let's talk about a little bit roadmap. Ibrahim Bey, I would like to continue with you in the financial side. As a capital market leader, can we share us what are the key initiatives and main developments in the sustainable finance markets, such as sustainable investment, sustainable fund, and sustainable instrument, impact investment. So what do you think will be the possible impact on European regulation, especially European Green Deal regulation on the capital markets and capital market institutions?
Thank you very much. After the ratification of the Paris Agreement last year, we declared our net zero emission target for the 2053. And of course, Capital Markets Board introduced Sustainable Principles Compliance Framework, and compliance with those principles is voluntary for public companies. And the Capital Markets Board requires an explanation from the companies for not complying and addressing their annual report starting from the year 2021. And similarly, last year in February, Capital Markets Board issued the guidelines for the especially green debt instruments. And the guidelines are intended to regulate the principles regarding the green and sustainable debt instruments to be issued to finance investments. And we know that the Capital Markets Board is still working on the developing stewardship code for asset managers. However, even though there are not current regulations defining sustainable funds, some asset management companies have already started to issue sustainable themed funds. And so we have already seen some initiatives on that. Of course, it's not enough for the country, especially for both our companies. But we have seen that there are really 12 asset management companies managing $3.8 billion worth of sustainable themed asset mutual funds. And again, we have seen this will somehow increase. Of course, for the other, especially for the companies, they have already financed their investments regarding ESG investments. We have seen that they have already got cheaper finance than government as well. We have some private companies, they have already financed themselves from the capital markets from abroad, cheaper than our government. For that, it's a good indication for all companies that has been really relying on these principles, ESG principles. They get really that kind of, let's say, advantage. Of course, both CMB and the Borsa Istanbul give the kind of incentives for this because they made some reduction on their fees and commissions. Of course, we have to give some advisory benefits in order to a kind of fee or a kind of grant in order to take that kind of, let's say, advisory from ESG advisors. That's very critical in order to comply, how to comply their activities with these standards. I mean, we are very optimistic about the developments. For that reason, we are very in line with all the government bodies. I think that we, of course, the capital markets, we think that we are able to finance these kind of projects, ESG projects, cheaper than and that's a big incentive for the especially companies. That's the key issue for the companies.
Continue banking industry very briefly. We have very limited time. Just I need to get a response in just 2 minutes. I will give very brief question. What were your priorities? Actually, as we know, you are preparing strategic banking sustainability strategy plan.
Actually, we have already prepared.
Yes, you already prepared. So can we learn what is your priority? What is your support for the institutions?
Yeah, actually, in our strategy, sustainable banking strategic plan, one of our first goal is to enable the banking system to manage its climate-related financial risks and opportunities, thereby maintaining and strengthening the confidence and stability of the individual banks and the sector as a whole. In close connection with this goal, we also aim for the banking sector to provide the financing needed for the green transformation process under favorable terms. And we think that these two goals are intrinsically linked and mutually supportive. Towards these goals, our first priority is to bring banks to a minimum standard of practice in green finance through a series of guidelines. The guidelines are intended to raise awareness and integrate sustainability and climate factors into all aspects of banks' operations. Issues such as governance, strategy and policies, metrics, risk management, and reporting will be the main issues to be clarified in these guidelines. Another agenda item in 2022 is to request climate risk management plans from the banks. We envisage that these plans would set out climate-related risks and opportunities in short, medium, and long term, and the related actual risk management components. We also increased our collaboration, coordination, and dialogue with the sector. We are holding monthly meetings with all banks. And regarding the data and reporting issues, as in many jurisdictions, Turkish banks are experiencing significant difficulties in accessing data, especially actually greenhouse emission data. And in this context, we are trying to explore some alternatives to facilitate banks' access to greenhouse emissions data. Being aware of these difficulties, we have encouraged the Bank Association of Turkey to establish a technical group, working group, to determine climate risk levels of assets. And lastly, I should actually touch on our efforts to facilitate banks' access to greenhouse emission. Currently, we estimate that the ratio of customers whose emission data is accessible by banks is less than 25%. Firms are generally reluctant to share this data. And now we are considering the alternative to requiring banks to obtain verified emission data when extending loans to firms operating in high emission sectors.
Yes, thank you, Vahap Bey. I would like to move to Gülsan Bey. Borsa Istanbul very active to development of Turkey's ETS markets. What should we expect to see near future?
To just summarize it in a few minutes,
Yes,
because I know that
please.
we will run out of time. It's been started in 2013, and nowadays and it just the partnership for market readiness, the PMR, and it's been more than 10 years that we are just dealing with this topic. So in 2018 we just went to another phase, and this is the carbon market, the emissions market, emission trading system for the for Turkey, and with the target 2053 net zero, we are trying to we have a plan for that, and next year we are going to start the carbon market. As I said before, we had just had the prototype so far. And now, for example, last week we were just discussing with the climate change authorities about the last legislation changes in the climate law. And also we are trying to build up the sub regulations about the market, how to trade and what to do. A few more words about the market. We will have a initial market, which is going to be first of all, some of the emission volume is going to be free for the companies, and then there would be some targets about diminishing what is going to have to done with the climate plan, and also the rest of the emissions are going to be auctioned amongst the companies, and it is going to be. There will be a price for it, for example, of course, and the price is going to be determined by the market itself. It's going to be a free market, but you know there would be some limitations about it. And then there would be a secondary market, which we will try to have limit the speculations and everything, which is I know very important. And so we are going to have some institutions later on in the market, so that it will be also an investment, and also the ones that are going to need more emission, they would just be able to buy from the market all the time, and the ones who just diminish their sizes will just be able to sell their excess carbon emissions to the market. And we are trying hardly on it, and the system is ready. And we only wait for the sub regulations.
What will be date to start?
Well, next year,
Next
with January, we are
2023.
planning to just first start it. Yeah, unless the regulations are ready, the technical system is ready, and Takasbank and Central Depository is also ready. We are only waiting for the official framework, the legal framework for our market.
Very good news. Thank you. Thank you for good news. Maybe most difficult question to pose to you. do you think easy and fair transition is possible?
Okay.
Do we have any roadmap
Yeah.
to make it
Okay,
happen?
I think I should thank you for that question. Probably I can also conclude thanks to that question. Maybe I should first say, is the current transition fair? Maybe we can. So I have already mentioned that we see currently that all countries are devising their own policies. And what is different is also that these policies now is expected to have international effects on trade and production. So are these policies fair currently? I don't really think. Just take the example of CBAM. Now, we can hardly say that it takes into account the common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities in one hand. But on the other hand, it will also actually in some way transfer the funds of exporting countries, and most of them are developing countries, to the European Union. And in that respect, it shouldn't actually result in such a transfer. So we should be working, now we see that risk. So is a fair transition possible? I think it is possible. But as we see that transition process requires us actually to change our production and consumption patterns, but also the way we are thinking about actually our economic growth models and how we are shaping global standards on reporting, on finance, on every area. So we should start to avoid this fragmentation. We need international collaboration on all aspects, on all these financial areas that we have been talking since the beginning. We are committed to continue our work actually on a taxonomy regulation, on sustainable banking, on devising our own carbon markets, or to raise actually sustainable funds. We would be working on this. But this would not be enough. If we are going to achieve a fair transition, actually, we need international collaboration. I think we need to think global and to act global. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baran. You said whatever I would like to say. It's very, very good wrap up. Our time is running up actually, so I can maybe conclude actually we need to know what should we do first. We need resources and roadmap. So we need a good strategy to move forward in this way. So maybe last word is the strategy is okay, maybe solution is okay, but we have to collaborate each other. We just completed the previous session like that. Collaboration is the best way to find a solution, our common problem, and also align with the global development. So I hope next year at COP28 we will able to talk what we have done and how did we find a solution and what is our roadmap for further development all together. And we got promise from our previous speakers. I would like to ask you to meet next year at COP28 as well. So
it would be a pleasure.
thank you for your great session. It's a very good discussion. I wish we had a time to talk longer, but time is over. Next year, I hope. Thank you for listening us. Thank you.